Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy. And during this season of Book Club, we're stepping away on Thursdays to explore topics we've recently written about on the Subtext Society Journal.
This week, we're discussing the mother curse in Romantasy, dead and sainted, or evil and traumatized.
The Subtext Society Journal is a space for critical thinking and cultural reflection on the genres that are too often dismissed, including romance, romantasy, fanfiction, and the narratives that live rent-free in our hearts and minds.
We're creating a bridge between academic analysis and the everyday reading experience, between highbrow literary commentary and the deeply personal way books shape who we are.
We publish thoughtful essays from our readers, ourselves, and guest contributors that explore the moral questions, genre evolutions, and cultural conversations happening in real time.
We are redefining what deserves serious attention in publishing, and we're doing it with feeling.
The views expressed in this episode are entirely our own and are not meant to represent the larger opinion of the bookish community. This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation. Readers and listeners are encouraged to share their own analysis and thoughts.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised. So, we are back for another SSJ. I mean, if no one knows what it's the Subtext Society Journal, but it's just, we come up with really long titles. Book Talk for Book Talk and the Subtext Society Journal. So we can't do that. It's BTBT and SSJ.
You'd think we would have learned our lesson by now, but we haven't.
No, we just know how to talk a lot. Hence the podcast.
Right. There's meaning in words.
Talk about talking a lot. We talked for 5 hours yesterday. We recorded 5 hours yesterday.
It was a lot. It was
my voice was sore.
Yeah.
Like my throat was sore. My voice was raspy.
My head and heart were sore just because I was very tired.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be asleep.
Yeah. But today is a special episode because it is live for our Patreon subscribers. Well, at least for some of them.
Specifically our tropey wives. We do have at least one tropey wife, I think, on Patreon. Sometimes I can see icons that show if someone's there.
Yeah, it's when we stop recording, we're like, oh, a lot more people were watching than we realized.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, there were 6 people. Really? All right. So today we are talking about an article I wrote early on in the Subtext Society Journal about the mother curse. I didn't know what else to call it. I don't know if it actually has a name already, but I call it the mother curse, which is essentially the role of mothers is very limited to being dead, possibly saintly, the perfect, the epitome of goodness, possibly evil, or traumatizing, like causing trauma to the hero or heroine.
Yep.
Which I feel like we've gotten a lot of that recently. And look, I recognize on some level we all have mommy issues, just like we all have daddy issues on some level. And parents are imperfect. And we eventually realize this, right? We eventually, as we get older, become disillusioned, and because we realize our parents are human, they make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so naturally, that is going to be part of storytelling because it is an extremely important part of just life in general. And what our parents do or do not do shapes who we are. I get it. As much as it reflects life, I still find it slightly problematic.
Yeah.
Just how... But I'm so conflicted because I'm like, I feel like it's so problematic how much we pin on mothers. But I also recognize I pin quite a bit on my mother that I've had to work through in therapy.
We are no better as writers.
Right.
That's the thing, right? Is that we're no better as writers, and you and I have done this. So this does not come from a place of like, we have the solution. We are part of the problem. And I think it's fair to say, is there a problem? Is there something? Because I think for me personally, there's 2 reasons about this. One, It's just another character. We don't want to have
Yeah.
to add another character. Like, let's just make life easy. Let's get rid of the parent. Let's get out of here. I can't incorporate another character, right?
Mhm.
And usually dead parent, just like it's built-in trauma. Like
Mhm.
you kind of have like, okay, there's depth to this person, right? Like they've experienced shit. So it's kind of like an automatic, look, they're not naive. They've gone through things and I don't have to deal with this other character.
Right. And the complex relationship that might exist because
Mhm.
the character is alive.
Yeah. On the other hand, when you go for a character where the mom is abusive, is evil, is something or other, I think as a writing device and as a society, it's us saying that it's more surprising when a mother is that way than the father. And I
Mm.
think it ends up getting like that bigger shock value. And I'm going to look at an Ember and Ashes as to
Mm.
one where if we had a father figure that abandoned their child and is a ruthless general, I don't think we'd bat an eye as much as when we find out it's his mom who abandoned him and is a
Right.
ruthless general. I think there's a little bit more to the shock factor of how could a mother do this?
No, that's an excellent point. And it is, I think, and I haven't read the full series. So in that
Mhm.
particular case, I don't know if there's more to the reason for that. There's more to the purpose.
We're just going to talk about the first book.
Right. But it is sad in some ways that as authors, we're looking for the shock factor at all times, the thing
Mhm.
that will keep our readers reading, and maybe there's more reason than just shock value, but sometimes shock value is what you want so that people stick around.
That's the thing is, like, we can't ask for the authors to not do that, like, we need the
Right.
shock value,
Right.
otherwise, like, it's just boring, and then that's kinda where you get the saintly mother, and they can't be alive, like, if you get the saintly mother, she's gotta be dead in a book,
Oh,
otherwise so I think that it's unfair to ask for anything where it's like, you can't okay, that's what it is. Sensational. But then on the flip side, if you need to add drama and like drama to the book, which is what you have to do, a book has to have
hmm
the drama. Well, then yeah, of course you're going to kill off that mom, and it's a tricky spot, and I don't think that the answer is necessarily stop killing off moms in books. I
right.
think it's just worth discussing and pointing out. So this conversation does not come from a place of let's find the solution. I think it just
hmm
comes from a place of like understanding why we do what we do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, to your point, there is no solution. There's no way to solve this problem per se. But I think that as writers and as readers, we should be cognizant of the
Mhm.
decision that is being made when it comes to mothers and whether they're alive and what role they play for the hero or heroine. Because if we're not cognizant of that choice that we're making, do we fall into a dangerous habit of perpetuating certain narratives? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I think we've read so many books recently for book club
Yeah.
that I'm like, the mother's only role in this was to traumatize the heroine.
Yeah.
And why why can't we give mothers a little bit more grace?
But that's the question with society. Why is it that when a mom screws up, we're going to hold her accountable far more than we hold the dad accountable?
Mhm. Mhm.
There's so many things. There was a video I saw on TikTok where this couple found a baby in a stroller in Walmart in just one of the aisles alone. And they were with the baby for like over 5 minutes. And then finally the dad comes and gets the baby. And they're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, what were you doing? And the dad's response was, his mom is somewhere else, like, is like, over on the other side of the store. And the person was like, that's your kid too. So
Yeah.
I think that there's just this a larger leeway that as a society has given shitty dads. And I
Mhm.
think you and I have talked about like the idea of, well, I'm used to the idea of a shitty dad, but the idea of a shitty mom, like we hold women at a much higher standard and expectation of not failing. And that's unfair to
Eh,
have women. Women
yeah,
are human too. They're figuring
right,
this out.
right, and I think that's where ultimately my concern comes from,
Hmm.
because if we're always using the woman as the shock value
Yeah.
for bad parenting in our fantasy novels, we're perpetuating this idea that women are held to a higher standard,
Yeah.
and not to an equal standard with the absent father or the father that causes trauma, etc. And I think that's where my ick comes from.
Yeah. When you hear in society of fathers leaving children versus when you hear stories of mothers leaving children. I mean, I would say, like, even listener, in your own personal life, think about, do you know anyone where the father left at any point of the child's or a person's life? Now think about how many people you know where the mother left. And I think that when I've heard stories about that, it's always more like, what? The mom,
Mhm.
your mom left? Like, it's shocking. And
Yeah.
it's unfair that it's not okay. So what's not unfair is that we shouldn't be lowering the expectations of mothers. We should be lifting
Y
the expectations of fathers, right?
Yeah.
The idea of a shitty father should be so much more surprising. Like, we
Yeah.
shouldn't be like, it's fine, women get to be shitty mothers too. It should just be, we should be holding
Men to the
shitty,
same standard.
yeah, to the same standard as that. And I think that literature really reflects that
Mhm.
quite a bit when
Yeah.
you think about things.
Yeah, because on some level, so the first one that comes to mind is Brimstone, just because I finished reading it.
Mhm.
The stepdad is evil, and we just accept that he's evil, just like we accept a stepmom to be evil. But why aren't we holding them to the same standard we would another Kingfisher's mother?
Yeah. Talk about another character that's saintly and dead.
Uh-huh.
The epitome of a saintly dead mother.
Yes, yes. Saintly and dead. They exist for sure, but there's also plenty of dead moms who cause trauma,
Yeah.
not just saintly. But we can either go into examples now. What do you think? Should we?
I think we go into examples. At one point, I kind of want to mention, maybe before we go into examples, there's only been one author we've talked to about this, and I can't wait to talk to when we go to Romantasy Con, talking to some more authors about it.
Hmm.
But I'm also like, one, good for her for taking that note, and two, ballsy of us for bringing it up to her. But she's the best. So Hannah Nicole Mayer, when we interviewed her, you were the one who brought up the dead mother, and
Hmm.
Hannah was like, because she wrote about a father in her book and her mother. That's what it is. She has
Both.
both. She has, and it was just really interesting. And I felt like, spoiler for book 2 for Hannah Nicole Mayer, but I found her series in her representation of moms to be very refreshing
Hmm.
because she was neither good nor bad. She's just a mom. She's just a woman who has mental health issues, who loves her kids and doesn't know what she's doing sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a very honest portrayal.
Hmm.
And I think Hannah said something. She was like, "Oh, well, I love my mom, so I think I'm not afraid to, like, dive into a character that's not her mom." That is not to
Yeah.
say that every author is writing about their mom one way or another, but it was, like, a very refreshing take to, like, see that mom represented and then
Yeah.
to be able to speak to the author on that.
Yeah. It really was. So the fact that, again, spoiler for the assistant to the villain series, but it was very refreshing. Not only is the father end up being just a bad guy, the mother who we thought was dead comes back and is troubled, but is trying to do better.
Yeah.
And how many times do we actually come across a mother or maternal figure in a fantasy novel whose journey is, I know I'm not the perfect mom and I want to be better,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
genuinely trying to be better? Like, I feel like that is close to unheard of.
I mean, especially since, like, that's what we as, modern women and modern mothers and daughters and everything should be striving towards, is accepting that moms, ourselves, our sisters, our friends are just human and just trying
Mhm.
to do better. I actually will continue to give Hannah even more props of her representation of a shitty dad, where his shittiness is held to the level of what we would expect of a mom. Like the
Mhm.
reactions and the horror of the truth that's revealed about the dad
Mhm.
was such a great job of, like, when we say, like, we need to hold men as accountable as the moms, I think Assistant to the Villain does that. And I don't,
Yeah.
like, no, I don't, maybe people are giving her credit for that, but I feel like Hannah's take on parents was one of the most refreshing takes I have
Yeah.
read in a book.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm so glad you brought that example up because it's easy for me to get focused on the stories that perpetuate the problem
Yeah.
rather than the stories that have done it well.
I'm going to bring up another story that's done it well.
Mm.
And I do that because there's a lot that haven't done it well that I think we should get into. But another one that I mentioned to you and you're like, I must write a 2.0 of my book is Spark of the Everflame,
Mhm.
where you start off with what you think, I mean, series spoilers for Spark of the Everflame. You start off with a dead mom that you think is a dead mom. And we kind of get this idea that she's kind of saintly. And then we get this father who
Trying
has
his
his
best.
trying his best, but definitely has his own issues.
Mhm.
And then the dad dies and is kind of held to this like saintly, remembered kind of memory. And then we find out the mom is alive and
Mhm.
she's kind of a badass and has made mistakes clearly, but is fighting for the greater good, which isn't that what her daughter's trying to do too?
But we're also kind of struggling, but I'm also mad that you abandoned your children, but I admire you fighting for the greater good, but you're still fucking it up. Like it's a very complex.
Because like it was abandoned, but she didn't mean it for it to be that long. It's very
Right.
complex, like you said. It's very rich.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is done so well, and I am interested to see how the story continues to progress in Burn,
Yeah.
whenever we get Burn.
Whenever we get Burn. That's just another one where the character is just not one way. It's not
Mhm.
just this is a bad character or this is, and I think that when it comes to parents in books, it's easier to sweep them into one category and
Yeah,
not have to develop them beyond either I'm just trying everything for my child and my entire life is my child, which nothing wrong with that,
yeah,
but we're human. We're
yeah,
more complex than that. You know, mothers are more than just being a mother.
right. It's interesting, mothers being more complex. I feel like to some extent, SJM, as an example, could have taken Mother Archeron in the ACOTAR series and made
Mhm.
her more complex. But instead, all we get is a woman who prioritizes her husband and her wealth over her children, which causes trauma
Mhm.
for the protagonist, and that's it. I want to know about the woman who prioritizes her relationship with her husband over her children.
Yeah.
I think there's lots and lots and lots of people who are on that same level, and there's
Mhm.
nothing. I'm not gonna pass judgment whether that's good or bad. It's just a way to prioritize your relationships, and I wanna know more about it. I wanna
Yeah.
know more about that relationship. Instead, all we know is Feyre has the same eyes as her mom and hates it because she hates her
And sh
mom.
and she fucked up Nesta.
Yeah, she fucked up Nesta. Who knows about Elaine?
She placed beauty and value on her looks for
Mhm.
Elaine. It's interesting because SJM is another interesting one who falls into it, but doesn't fall into it because you
Mhm.
have with when let's look at the ACOTAR series, spoilers for all SJM, all series, you have I'm gonna take the series by series. So first we have Throne of Glass. So let's start there. Throne of Glass, we have Aelin's mom, who, as we were
Evelyn.
just talking about in this past episode yesterday that we recorded in episode 9, her mom had to drown her
Yeah,
in order to calm her power. And
yeah,
her dad was the one who ordered that, who was
yeah.
like, you gotta do this. That's messy, and I don't know if, like, we dive into it throughout the series at all, because there is a bit like the saintly of they're perfect because they died, but she doesn't hear her dad call her Fireheart.
Right, right. Aelin has a very complex relationship with her mother
Mhm.
because she doesn't remember her mother as happy or loving. She remembers her mother as worried and always concerned about Evelyn's or Aelin's safety and then drowning and
Yeah.
then being drowned by her mother in order to control the fire.
And then but we're gonna get the Fireheart. Fireheart, why do you cry? Oh my god, I'm gonna start crying thinking about it. I can't deal with that. But, like, it is a complex way of looking at
Mhm.
things. And then you look at Bryce and her mom, Ember. Oh, I love Ember. I love
I
Ember Quinlan.
I love Ember because she is a realistic mother in terms of like the dynamic
Oh,
of
yeah.
a mom and an adult daughter, but she's not that rich. She's just Jack is like, "What are you saying? This is blasphemy."
Well, talk to me, because we get a whole backstory of how she was in an abusive relationship, gets
Right.
out of it, fought her fucking way out of that, fell in love, and is very so, like, talk to me about the rich stuff.
So, what I mean by that is she has a rich backstory, but her role in the current setting
Mhm.
and isn't necessarily a big contributor the way that
Spark of the Everflame,
Spark.
assassin to the villain, or assistant to
Right,
the villain. Yeah.
right. She's on the periphery
Yeah.
and, you know, she's there to adopt a kid. She's there to be sent away, and that's
Sh
about it.
She doesn't have her own wants.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. And then we got a comment today about ACOTAR because, like, you posted a video about
Oh,
this
yeah.
topic. And so we talk about Mama ACOTAR. Don't look at the comment.
No, I
Uh,
already saw it.
okay. Did you?
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Someone said about Feyre?
Farah, that
Yeah,
she's a double curse breaker.
yeah.
So we have Mama ACOTAR, but then we have Farah, who almost dies in
Mhm.
Silver Flames, but almost becoming susceptible to the
The
mother
mother
curse.
curse.
And I think the mother curse, you can honestly probably look at it and broaden the definition of it, but look at it as a trope, probably not a
Right,
trope, a literary lens.
right.
And you could, if you want to look at this whole, well, why does Farah have to become pregnant? Why does she almost die? Like, all these things. I think if you were to develop this quote unquote mother curse as a literary lens, you can
Mm.
actually really view this Farah becoming pregnant, Farah, Reese line and everything, as it being a really good subverting expectations with the mother curse lens.
Is it though? So, I agree that she has subverted death,
Mhm.
right? So, she hasn't fallen into the mother death trap. But to what extent is her pregnancy the process of sainthood, of immortalizing her,
Mm.
to putting her on a pedestal so that she stays out of the way so Nesta can have her story?
You know, this goes into, oh, I love these discussions. My head's jumping all over the place. This reminds me of my dissertation, The Gender Politics of Vampirism, which will be available soon. I think we're going to do it where the only way you can get it is if you subscribe to our newsletter,
Yes, which is
which
forthcoming.
which is forthcoming. Yeah. But I talk about the vampire being saved, and I think you can apply this to not just the vampire, but like any female character being saved through embracing motherhood, because
Mhm.
there is an automatic saintliness that we give to these characters when they seek motherhood.
Right, right.
And there's a difference between, oh no, they ended up pregnant versus seeking motherhood. And why is it that when there's this thing that in reality, I want to be a mom, I want to have kids,
Mhm.
I think that's my choice. I think there's
Yep,
plenty of women who choose not to, Amy. And I don't think that it makes me a saint, you
right.
know? But then when you have someone like, you say that you don't want to have kids, then all of a sudden it's like, hopefully no one's giving you shit. Oh, I do know people who's giving you shit about it. But
Plenty of people have given me shit about it.
yeah, but it's like, why is it that in books it becomes the saintly thing versus
Mhm.
in the real world, you're not a saint for wanting to become a mom, but you are damned if you don't want to be a mom.
Exactly, exactly. Well, and here's the, kind of adding to that, why do so many people dislike a pregnancy trope?
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
the trope itself serves a specific narrative purpose.
Yep.
And oftentimes, like in Bella's case in Twilight, it
Mhm.
saves her from the evil nature of vampirism.
Yep.
And that's what your dissertation talks about.
Yep.
For Feyre, her pregnancy saves her from death. I mean, through Nesta, but her pregnancy makes her saintly and therefore antagonistic to Nesta. Her pregnancy makes her saintly and therefore damns Reese for his decisions.
Yeah.
So, I think that in literature, I think
Mhm.
it's hard to come across a pregnancy trope or a woman choosing motherhood for it to not rub people the wrong way because it does something to somebody else.
Okay. A scatter pot of brains. I love these discussions. I'm loving these SSJ discussions. Okay. There is something about when people get pissed, especially when it comes to Farrah wanting to be a mom. Granted, she's young. I
Yeah,
think she could have waited some time. We
right,
didn't have to jump into it post-war like that. However,
right,
I understand that she never had her own family that she feels like she wants and almost died, and she probably was like, "Fuck it, I don't wanna wait. You never know what's gonna happen."
right.
I think what's hard is that as someone who has not been pregnant yet, who has not had a child yet, but who has seen this a lot between friends, family, and society, a woman's priority has to change when she's pregnant. And that is what you eat, prenatals, your health. Like your priority has to shift
Mhm,
one way or another. And I think it's really hard for people to kind of accept because then you hear it all the time. I've heard it from friends. I've heard it from other people where like, oh, that's their only personality now is like now they've lost who they are to this pregnancy. I've had family members say that they feel like they've lost themselves into it. And then they have the child and then all they're doing is breastfeeding and, who are they? And there is like, danger of identity being lost. And, I think a lot of that has to do with postpartum depression and, feeling very isolated. And it is an isolating experience because it's not like the father isn't carrying the child. It is a
mhm.
singular experience. Okay. You know that there's also another trope, not a trope, but like a concept that sometimes, not all men, but sometimes men get jealous of the attention not going to them all the time.
Mhm.
How much of this is society and the patriarchy being jealous of women's attention no longer being on the patriarchy, but rather being on the child? And
Right.
we as a society don't accept it because I mean, again, there's like one friend I've argued on this all the time, and she doesn't get it when like a mother character is like, choose the baby over me if she's pregnant. Like I like Farrah, like, if there's a
Yeah,
choice, you choose the baby. And like they don't understand that, but it's like that's free will too,
right,
but just because the woman is not being quote unquote selfish in the way that you want
right.
doesn't take away from it, but at the same time, when a woman is choosing the child, we're assuming that she's lost her own identity because how much of that is the patriarchy saying, "Well, no, you're choosing the child over me," and then we are just picking up the residue of that general vibe.
That's so interesting because the patriarchy has reduced women to their only purpose being birthing children
Mhm,
for them, right?
mhm.
So that they can have a legacy. So it's an interesting, like, paradox that
Yeah,
they expect women to have children, but also potentially find that they are jealous of the child because at the end of the day, the mother is the only person who can ensure that that child lives,
yep,
right? Because it's in her body.
Yes.
How much of it is also not just jealousy over the child, but man's jealousy that they cannot return to childhood, that they
To their
cannot be.
own mother.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Very Oedipus.
Very Oedipus. I mean, it's like in domestic violence situations, some of the most dangerous times for women in DV relationships is when they're pregnant.
Mhm.
And why is that? Like, what is this about it? Like, this, desire to go back and get mommy's attention, or, there's just so much to it. It's like really, women are condemned to the Madonna or the whore. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you only can be one or the other. And then, there's something about motherhood that ruins this idea of the Madonna, of like, the maiden, the virgin, where it's like, well, you had a kid. Clearly you had to, have sex to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like even the idea of like the husband stitch. Do you know about the husband stitch?
Mm-mm.
So back in the day, I don't know if this was really done, but there would call it the husband stitch. So you know how women sometimes tear between their
Yeah.
vagina all the way to the anus, and they would ask to add one extra stitch to make the vagina tighter.
Mm.
Whether that happened or not, couldn't tell you, but I know it was enough of a thing that it's now like, in the cultural zeitgeist lexicon. And it comes back down to, well, what the fuck? Like, tight again? It's, dear
For the man's
Lord,
pleasure.
for the man's pleasure. And it's just like as if a vagina doesn't retract anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting. And I think all of this translates and carries back into literature and us
Yeah.
condemning moms because we as society don't know what to do with moms.
Yeah. Yeah. This conversation, not quite relevant, but it reminds me of a conversation you and I have had before about how men, I don't remember if this is truth, science, or just perception, but men who are on the birthing side of the table who watch their wife give birth fall
Mm.
out of love with their wife compared to men who stay by the wife.
I think that's like a cultural thing, that
Yeah.
whether that's true or not. I mean, I remember growing up, there was like, my mom told me there was like a rumor that, again, you guys don't listen to me, but that after Elvis
Mhm.
and his wife Priscilla, after she gave birth, he couldn't have sex with her again because he saw the baby come out and was like somewhere between, almost like turned her back, like put her in a pedestal. Not
Mhm.
that like they couldn't. I know you and I have talked about it where I was like, no chance in hell will I let my husband will go look down there. Not necessarily because he won't be able to handle it afterwards, but just because
Mhm.
the general idea freaks me out. And I don't want anyone looking down there. You will be the only person who's allowed to look.
Of
I don't
course.
want to see it. I don't want to know about it. That's not my business. My business is not down there.
Yeah, but you did once tell me the
Elvis thing.
Elvis story, and
Yeah.
we theorized it's because a man cannot find a woman's body attractive or desirable the second that they've been equated to motherhood, to
Yeah.
birthing.
And it's somewhere, and I don't think it comes down to the like, "Oh my god, a giant baby came out of here. It's
Mhm.
disgusting." I think it probably comes down to like, "You're a mom. I
Yeah.
have a mom.
Mm.
What?" Like
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, and I know there's some men who are absolute pieces of trash, and I truly believe that a man should be able to look down and be like, "This is a beautiful moment of life. My wife is an absolute champ.
Yeah,
She's the best person," and, and they shouldn't have, like, bat a fucking eye about it. Again, for
yeah,
me personally, it's not my business down there. I don't
yeah.
wanna know. I don't even wanna look when I get, like, my blood drawn and stuff. Did you know my mom, like, they had a mirror so that she could watch?
I think you've told me that before, yeah.
Maria, what?
I don't know how she was able to focus.
She didn't have any epidural either. She just was My family was like, there was a time where they were like, "You do not do epidural. You
Yeah.
take it like a champ." And then my generation was like, "Fuck that."
My mom had an epidural with me, and she said it was more painful than not having an epidural.
Why is that?
I think it's just the process of putting a needle into your spine. Like, I've had an epidural for my back pain. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows what'll happen. First, I need to find a man. Second, get knocked up. Third, we'll figure that you and I, Amy, will figure out my birth plan when it's time.
Yeah. I mean, my mom had 4 boys who were each 2 pounds heavier than me without epidurals.
From what I learned from Call the Midwife in Netflix, UK has gas and air, which is laughing gas, and it just
Mhm.
kind of takes off. And I'm like, that seems pleasant.
Yeah.
However, also never had a baby. The idea of a giant, I can't handle needles. I can't handle my blood being drawn. The fact that I inject myself weekly is a miracle within itself, but it wasn't without me FaceTiming Amy and sobbing the first time. But it's
Well, I mean, the first time I was in the room.
I mean, the first time you were in the room, and then I made you hug me, and then you're like, "Can you please put on a shirt?" And I was like, "No." And but, like, I can't when I get my blood drawn, I can't look at that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that was a really intense segue. Are there any comments at all?
Yeah, Milika just messaged 2 minutes ago. What about the pregnancy trope in Throne of Glass, where the pregnant character, Irene, takes part in a war and defeats the main villain? I thought it was nice in the
Mm.
sense that pregnant characters usually have to stay out of the action, like Feyre, for example. I agree. Honestly, I
Yeah,
forgot that
I
Irene
forgot.
was pregnant.
I don't I don't
Go
think that
ahead.
was ever in my brain. That's cool.
I think it was secret. I think she was keeping it secret from Kale because he would have kept her from the action. But it is true,
Mhm.
Irene is the ultimate reason why they're able to defeat Erewhon. And I do love that. I feel like in some ways that makes up, and I know plenty of people probably disagree, it makes up for what happens to Aelin at the end of the series.
For losing her power.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
We already gave warnings about spoilers.
Right, because it's kind of this balance of pregnant women don't normally get to see the action, don't get to contribute. And so I'm balancing Aelin's loss of power, which
Mhm.
honestly is what she's always wanted. She's never wanted her power. That's a different topic. Balanced with Irene contributing meaningfully to the war as a pregnant woman.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. We should have more pregnant women being badasses because in our society, pregnant women are badasses. Like, that's the other thing
Mhm.
we just conveniently forget
Yeah.
that, just because a woman becomes pregnant doesn't mean that they're suddenly gone from society. Like, they have to continue and
Yeah.
contribute and be a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
They can go save an entire world.
The amount of women who are pregnant and work up until like a week before their due date.
My mom was one of them. She worked until the day before.
I don't
And
know how
she
they do
worked at
it.
a hospital. She was a nurse's assistant, and so she was walking around at the hospital.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very, very admirable. See, I would be like, I'm bedridden for the next 5 months leading up to the pregnancy and then bedridden for the next year after that.
Having period brain is hard enough when you're in that
Yeah.
fog.
Yeah.
Pregnancy brain, I have talked to so many women when they're just like, pregnancy brain is real and they just like cannot, like they're busy trying to focus and like be
Mhm.
present and remember everything. And that's like whenever I'm like, I have period brain, I can only imagine it's like that, but worse. And if it's not worse, it's like forever, not
Yeah.
just like the 2 days that I
Right.
have it.
Right.
So yeah, I can, we just don't give women enough credit.
I agree. I agree. And so I think not only do we need to think about mothers and how they're, I'm trying to bring it back to literature.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have that. So, like, because we don't give women enough credit in the real world, we don't give
Mhm.
women enough credit in books.
It's
And
true.
I think because we, as a society, haven't figured out that there is a balance between women being moms and women being humans. And I don't mean that. I think like the individual women do know that. I don't think we give enough credit. And again, this comes from like me knowing many mothers in my life. that give enough credit for the moms who have to kind of find their identity again, who have to
Mhm.
come back and say, like, okay, this is who I am now, who do have to mourn who they were before they had a baby, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that the world has understood that enough. I think that's still a relatively new concept. I know the idea of like postpartum is something that in recent years, and I mean that within like, I don't know, 10 years or so, is becoming more acceptable to talk about.
Mhm.
Until we are able to understand and wrap our head around women being multifaceted, of being able to be all focused on motherhood and their child, but also being their own person who will make mistakes, who will screw up, and holding men accountable and bringing it to that level, all of that does translate into books.
Yeah, it does. And, something you said just made me think of Silver Flames, which we haven't started to analyze. So I'm going to be interested when we do analyze. To what extent are people mad at Reese for lying to Feyre because he's not giving Feyre enough credit to be
Mhm.
able to handle the truth and to be a
Mhm.
thought partner in how to resolve the problem? And instead, he thinks he can keep it to himself about, her
Yeah.
being unable to give birth and worries about it himself instead. Like, it's fair.
Yeah. That'll be such an interesting conversation
Yeah.
because I think it was only like a couple days before Nesta said anything. Like it wasn't that long of a secret.
Mhm.
And I once met a listener, and she had a very interesting perspective where she said that she was very anxious in general. And if she had been in that position, she would not blame her partner for trying to find other solutions
Mm.
before presenting it to her.
Yeah.
And she was like, I honestly get it and I don't blame him. And I was like, I thought that was a refreshing, like, different POV to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense, but when has Favor demonstrated herself as an anxious person?
We will get to that point when we get to that point. That is not for today's
That
discussion.
is
But
not for today's
I
discussion.
think that it is going to be good. That's the beauty with literary lenses. There's so many established ones, but you can make up your own. But I think that it'll be a very refreshing conversation to get into because not only do we have Farah, who is the saintly mother, we have their mother, Mama Archeron, who we talk about quite a bit in that book, who is the evil mother, right?
Mhm.
And you get a balance between these two. And we kind of have Nesta who's stuck between the two, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Nesta's not saintly like Farah is,
Mhm.
and she's not as evil as her mom. Like, I think when Nesta becomes a mom, because we know that's what she wants, I think it's going to be one of those, like, she'll probably be a more realistic representation of a very complex woman who is not defined by one thing.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that works out because, SJM drew a lot on her own personal experience with depression to
Yeah,
write Nesta. Has she publicly said she had postpartum?
I think she has. We'll have to check.
I think so. I want to say I could be wrong though, but it would be interesting if she has had postpartum.
Hmm.
Does she somehow integrate that into her storytelling?
Yeah. Yep. I think it's going to be really good conversation, especially since Farah put on quite a bit of the like mother role herself. Like she was the provider.
Mhm.
So even though she's Nesta's younger sister, she was the provider for so long. And then you have the fact that Nesta was the older sister and she feels guilt for not providing. So it's kind of like a role reversal of like, you were the mom, I should have been the mom, but then they have the fucked up mom. And then she even gets up like there. I remember there's another point where she was like, "Oh, Farah loves her child the way that our mother should have loved us."
Mm, mhm.
And how much resentment is to that, you know what I mean? Because now
Yeah.
this child's going to get love the way that they didn't get love. I am happy for the pregnancy trope because it makes it complicated in a way that I don't think people will give it credit until we talk about it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Another win. I mean, I don't think this one was that long of an episode, but
we've been live
45
for
minutes.
48 minutes.
It'll be like 45 minutes ish.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Melika, thank you for joining us and anybody else who was on Patreon with us. We are doing this in the middle of our workday, so we do have to get back to work, unfortunately.
And if you guys have any thoughts, I know we say it at the end of the episode, but, let us know. Leave comments on Spotify, send us DMs. I think that this particular subject is always going to be a little complicated because, we know we're not coming in with an answer, because there is no answer. And then it comes around the discussion of moms and motherhood, which there's no one copy-paste route for that. So I think that we would just love your side, your interpretation of things, because there's no one answer for this one.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Next week, we will be discussing Silver Elite by Danny Francis.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle BookTok for BookTok. And don't forget to join us by subscribing to the Subtext Society Journal.substack.com to get more insights into the romantasy and romance world. Bye.
Bye.